My first thought this morning was that House Republicans were behaving like children once again. But I realized how wrong I was when I saw a C-SPAN video of an actual child in the House of Representatives sitting behind his father yesterday while his father spoke to an empty House chamber.
Regardless of one's opinion of the current Republican nominee, we'd be well served to remember the long and cherished tradition we have in this country of settling our political differences at the ballot box. For nearly 2.5 centuries.
6-year-old Guy Rose was just having some fun after his father told him to smile at the camera for his 3-year-old brother who would be watching. And Guy really is a great big brother, because that's probably exactly what his 3-year-old little brother wanted to see. That's what I would have wanted to see when I was 3 years old. It's fair to assume that Guy wasn't paying any attention to what his father was actually talking about, but his reactions were perfect for more than half the country who know just how absurd it is for Republican Tennessee Congressman John Rose to praise the long and cherished tradition we have in this country of settling our political differences at the ballot box. Because on that same House floor, on January 6, 2021, John Rose voted to overturn the presidential election. John Rose said, no, this election was not settled at the ballot box. We Republicans will settle it right here in the House of Representatives. That's what John Rose wanted to do. And that's what John Rose voted to do. And so anyone who knows that about John Rose probably would have had a very similar facial expression to what we saw behind John Rose when he expressed his reverence for that cherished tradition of settling our differences at the ballot box. It turns out the 6-year-old in that video was the only honest person in that video. And so, no, House Republicans do not behave like children, because children are more honest than they are. Today's Republican-controlled House Judiciary Committee hearing was supposed to be about oversight of the Justice Department, which has more than 115,000 employees and a budget of $39.7 billion administered by Attorney General Merrick Garland. The Attorney General got no questions about that budget in that so-called oversight hearing, which began the way elementary school classes begin, with the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is something that no House or Senate committee has ever found necessary until the Republicans won control of the House in this Congress. And of course, the Pledge of Allegiance makes absolutely no sense in a body where everyone takes an oath of office. That oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States has been repeatedly violated by many of the Republican members of the House who so eagerly stood for the Pledge of Allegiance in the House Judiciary Committee hearing today. The Pledge of Allegiance pledges allegiance to a flag, not the Constitution. The chairman of the House Judiciary Committee violated his oath of office on January 6th by voting to overturn the presidential election. But Jim Jordan leads the performance art of pledging allegiance to the flag in the Judiciary Committee, as he did today.
We welcome everyone to today's hearing on oversight of the Department of Justice. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No harm in a little flag worship, right? Except that they don't mean it.
I have to say I'm pleased and a bit surprised to see that the flag in this committee is still flying right side up, because they want to turn it upside down, even as they want to turn our justice system upside down.
Their Pledge of Allegiance to the flag is a lie. Their allegiance is to Donald Trump, and they have pledged that allegiance much more convincingly than their allegiance to the flag. They would turn that flag upside down in a second if Donald Trump ordered them to. None of those Republicans have any problem with Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito flying that same flag upside down at his home in support of and sympathy with the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. The Alito upside-down flag, which mirrors the upside-down flags carried by the attackers at the Capitol, went upside down on the Alito flagpole only after January 6th. Here's a flag that's never been upside down. That's the flag outside my office window. That's the shot of it today from my phone. That's the way it looked at about 6 p.m. today. The American flag, put that back up there. The American flag flying outside the Fox propaganda headquarters would never be flown upside down. But everyone working inside Fox has to now pretend that there's nothing troubling about the Alito flag. We had a right to expect that Supreme Court justices did not have political views that were as extremist as the worst of the Fox propagandists. Who would have guessed that a Supreme Court justice was more likely to fly the flag upside down after January 6th than Fox was? The Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee today did not want to talk about a propaganda flag-flying Supreme Court justice or any federal judge or anything about the federal judicial system. They just wanted to pretend that there was something wrong with the most criminal president in history becoming a criminal defendant after his presidency. The first Republican questioner of the Attorney General today said last year that he wants to abolish the FBI.
We either get this government back on our side or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF.
Abolish the FBI. That's the Republican position. Attorney General Garland, in his opening statement, mentioned just some of the things that the abolish the FBI party does not care about.
Just 10 days ago, we secured the extradition of one of the lead sicarios, or assassins, of the Sinaloa cartel, one of the most dangerous drug trafficking organizations in the world. Just last month, we secured a 27-year prison sentence for a man who attempted to kill NYPD officers in a terrorist attack in Times Square in 2022. In just the first 3 months of this year, we charged 7 members of a hacking group backed by the Chinese government. We disrupted a botnet controlled by Russian intelligence services, and we seized over $108 million and 500,000 barrels of fuel that would otherwise have enabled the government of Iran to further support Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorist groups. We have continued our work to drive down violent crime, work that we know is paying off. Last year's historic decline in homicides, the largest one-year decline in 50 years, is continuing. In the first quarter of this year, we have already seen an 18% drop in murders.
And Congressman Matt Gaetz wants to abolish the FBI. He doesn't want the FBI to do any of that work. In fact, there wasn't a single Republican on that committee today who supported any of that work done by the FBI.
Maybe the people in America are not living in a bubble. Maybe we are.
That was Republican Barry Moore, who was feeling his way toward the truth that the Republican members of the committee are indeed living in a bubble, a Trump bubble. There is lying, and then there is Republican lying.
I have given my life to the law. I care deeply about the law.
No Republican on that committee has a more perverse relationship with the law than Congressman Matt Gaetz. Congressman Gates echoed the Republican demand that Attorney General Garland release the audio recordings of a special prosecutor's interviews with President Biden about some classified material that was found in his vice presidential papers in a non-secure location, which President Biden immediately reported as soon as they were found. The special prosecutor found that there was no criminal conduct or intent on Joe Biden's part and praised President Biden's cooperation with that investigation.
I just want to get this straight. Mr. Gates wants the Attorney General to reopen and publicize evidence from an investigation that a Donald Trump-appointed prosecutor closed against President Biden, while at the same time, Mr. Gates himself is being protected by the same DOJ policy that is refusing to voluntarily turn over evidence from Mr. Gates' sex trafficking investigation.
Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse asked the Attorney General about the most deadly criminal threat facing Americans.
And I wonder if you might just opine a bit or expound a bit on your work as it relates to gun violence.
Well, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act has been extraordinarily helpful in our effort to combat gun violence. It's led to substantial numbers of prohibited sales of guns to minors who the statutes prohibit possessing because of conduct that they have engaged in. It's given us the authority to bring cases for straw purchasing that's led to crime guns and to gun trafficking to criminals, and in those ways has helped drive down the numbers with respect to gun violence. We have set up crime gun intelligence centers so that our state and local counterparts can trace guns that are found at crime scenes to determine whether they were used by serial killers, by serial shooters, to help us find out, to run the DNA off of the casings so that we can find hits on those people and arrest them and prevent them from committing further crimes. There's a host of things that the department has done. But the principal kind of violence we're worried about in the country is gun violence. That's what causes the enormous number of deaths we face every year.
And Republicans want to abolish the FBI.